Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are finally getting to my review of Legacy Witches by Cass K. This came in, technically it was my most recent Nightworms package because I got it the closest to now. It was supposed to be the March one. Everything got delayed. My April one came before my March, whatever. But I read this. This was really interesting. This was definitely way different than I expected. And I definitely want to talk about it. Before I dive into this review though, I just want to say once again, this is just my opinion. I am just a random person on the internet. I did my video on Cassandra Cause, The Salt Grows Heavy, and definitely, I guess, riled up at least one person with my opinions of it, so I'm sorry about that, but these are just my opinions. I try very hard to always be as open and honest about my most authentic opinions on books. And when I don't like a book, I like to talk about why, and when I love a book, I like to also talk about why. But today we're going to talk about a book I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed this, and I didn't think I was going to. I'm not going to lie, the concept is really up my alley. The cover, like, so up my alley. The, like, almost sort of accurate map of Salem. There's definitely some differences. Very cool. But there was something about this book when I just first read about it, and I was like, this could go, like, I always hate on CW, but it could go, like, bad CW, like, mid-20s young adult, just over-the-topness, which is thoroughly what I was expecting going into this. The cover also definitely doesn't help. I really like the cover, but it just kind of screams, like, YA to me. And it's not a YA book by any means, but I was just kind of expecting those kind of, like, melodramatic CW Riverdale kind of vibes, and it wasn't that at all. And I was so excited. And because this is, like, a limited edition of this book, this novel came out in 2022, the second book in the series is already out, and I won't lie, I bought it. I ordered it online. It should be showing up soon. There was like a delay, but I did buy it because I want to know what happens for the rest of the story. So I'm going to just read the inside flap for you guys so you know what this is about. Seeing ghosts and coming from a long line of murderous witches has made life less than sunshine and rainbows for Vianna Roots. When she inherits the family's haunted house, she decides flipping the rundown dump for cash is the smartest move. But the ghosts that haunt her have a different plan. After encountering the spirit of a missing local witch, Vianna finds herself drawn into the mystery of who murdered the girl, and her meddling draws the attention of the oldest coven in Salem. When they make an offer on the house, Vianna hesitates, cutting ties with the demon who possesses her home, and the transgender outcast witch, who may just be the best friend she never knew she wanted, isn't so simple. The tainted legacy of the witches before her was why she ran 10 years ago. But this time, Vianna is ready to prove that the past doesn't define her. So as many of you guys know, I love and adore Salem. I try to go to Salem at least once a year. It's one of my favorite cities in America. It's absolutely awesome. The history there is so interesting. It's just so different than the stereotype that it tends to get. In the way that, like, the witch trials happened and what happened to those people. There's just so many layers to the Salem witch trials and everything that happened afterwards. And I was really worried that this book was going to just kind of play upon, like, the idea of witches in Salem. And I do have to admit, it absolutely did. It didn't really pay attention to the actual historical aspects of witches in Salem and how they were primarily just wrongfully convicted people who had property that political figures wanted. It did play up the idea of them actually being witches. Another thing that it did, though, that I thought was really interesting was not only play up witches and magic in Salem, but it also played up a lot of hoodoo, which is interesting since that's normally something that you find in America down in the South, in like New Orleans or Savannah. But they introduced it very well here. And I just got so many, like, the Kiss Curse vibes of this novel. If you took out, like, the romance of the Kiss Curse and the X-Hex, and then you put in instead, like, high-stakes family drama, it just gave me all of those vibes. It reminded me so much of, like, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina as well, which I know CW adjacent, but, like, way better. But I just adored this. I really loved our main character, Viana. I thought she was really, really unique, really interesting. Not the brightest. There are so many, like, mistakes she just kind of walks into, or, like, irrational decisions she makes. But it kind of read to me as, like, young adult who ran away from home at, like, 16 and is kind of floundering in the world. That's kind of the vibe that I got. Like, she really embodies that. Like, she really hasn't had too much of a guiding figure in her life to help her grow and mature, and I thought her character developed very strongly that way. I kind of loved how evil the witches were. I mean, because they are evil in here. I wasn't expecting the graying of good and evil to take place the way it does. I thought it would be very, very black and white, but so many of these characters are really, really walking that line between good and evil, and I really, really loved how it was done. And then I loved Dee. Dee is the transgender witch that the Inside Flap mentions. What a fantastic character she is. She was so fun. She gave me vibes of, like, Zoe from the Gravekeeper series by Darcy Coates, but just not quite as conspiracy theorist, more just, like, fun and whimsical and full of life, and I just loved that. The overall story was interesting. It was very, how do I say, it was very, like, generic. Like, this was just, like, a generic kind of, who is the evil person in the coven causing all of this stuff to happen, but it kind of unraveled and had these kind of interesting twists. I do feel that, like, certain characters kind of got blended to be, like, one. Like, there's several characters who are, like, hierarchy, who are, like, the heads of the covens, or, like, the top of the hierarchy. And they all kind of seem to be one type of character. Like, I feel like when they were first introduced, they had these kind of different personalities, but by the end, they were all just kind of a jumbled collective of the same kind of flawed personalities. Didn't love that too much. And there was definitely some, like, odd, unexplained motivations behind certain characters. Like, Casada had a very strange motivation that is not really fleshed out. Charles had a strange motivation that's not really fleshed out. Nancy had a strange motivation that's not really fleshed out. And it just left me wanting answers to those questions. And when I found out it was a series, I was like, you know what, I can get behind this, because I enjoyed being with these characters. I did really enjoy the setting. It felt like Salem adjacent. You can tell that Cass Kay has definitely been to and maybe even lived in Salem. She does know that she is a descendant of somebody who was wrongly accused of being a witch. Not one of the ones who were actually executed for it, but definitely somebody who was run out of Salem for it. But you can definitely tell that Cass Kay has been in and around Salem. You could really feel the vibes. However, I felt that she really played up, like, the touristy aspects of Salem. If you go to Salem off season, it's really not touristy at all. And this kind of almost felt like it was like the Vegas Strip, the way she was talking about it, and it felt like that was just a little jumbled. But that's, again, just my own personal preference and love of the town of Salem. But she did a very good job of embodying what Salem is today, along with talking about just the different lineages of witches throughout different time periods in Salem. I thought that was really, really good. I thought Viana's great-great-great-great-grandmother, whatever it is, Susanna, who was alive during the original Salem witch trials, I really loved how they talked about her story and her character. It gave me serious Hocus Pocus vibes, and I loved that she wasn't necessarily a good character. Again, a lot of the Roots family clan, which is kind of notified, which you're told about in the very beginning, they're not good people. They're not good witches. And I really, really liked this idea of, like, most of these witches aren't necessarily good. And again, that blurring of the line between good and evil. And I just thought it was really, really well done and original and unique and fun. And while it did kind of inch towards the CW melodrama, it never really went into that territory. Yeah, so it kind of inched into that territory without ever really going to it. So it kind of gave me that kind of melodrama that a plot needs without feeling overdone or ridiculous. And I just really loved it. I had so much fun reading this book. I will definitely be reading the next one. I want to learn more about familiars. I feel like she completely rewrote the lore of familiars, and I thought it was really, really cool, and I loved the house. Oh my god, the family roots home sounds so awesome, and I just want to see what happens, and I was so invested in Dee and Viana's friendship, and I just want to know more about all of these people. I will say I think I noticed a couple, like, contradictions and plot holes. I feel like Cascade might have gotten her, like, certain covens mixed up at certain times, and certain characters, I guess I kind of felt like they blended into other characters. But just kind of, like, little nitpicky things. I did enjoy her overall voice. It did feel a little, overly telly versus showy at moments, but nothing that, like, really took me out of it. So this was overall a 4-star read. I would definitely read more from Cascade. I'm planning on I would read more from the series. That's hard to do. I normally don't like series, but I'm really in this realm where if it's something like the Gravekeeper or the X-Hex Kiss Curse series, I'm about, like, the kind of witchy, almost palate cleansery, but still spooky vibes. Those are a series where I get invested in the characters and I want to know more. But yeah, if that's something that you're looking for, definitely check this out, because it really blew my expectations out of the water. Definitely way better than I thought it was going to be, and I want to go to this house, y'all. It was so cool, and I loved all the rules of the coven. Like, it almost felt like upper crust society. You know, like the socialites versus the commoners. Like, that kind of was the vibe that I got from, like, solitary witches versus, like, coven witches. Really interesting dynamic, and I really liked all of, like, the social aspects of it. And again, I keep saying this, but I love how there are very few good characters in this story, but there are compelling characters that you want to read about, and there are also characters who do and say and think awful things, but they're not the bad guy. Really interesting dynamic. Anyway, that is all that I have for you guys today. As always, I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays, and if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.